This painting by Kim Hong-do is not like the paintings we've been studying. It's not like the grand philosophical poetic self-expression of literati painters like Dong Chi-chang. It does not show us the etiquette and elegance of the Confucius court in all of its splendor. It does not have the transcendent beauty of a Buddhist painting of a bodhisattva, or the mystical magic of a painting of a poetic dreamscape. Instead, it shows us work, arduous, difficult work that makes you sweaty and dirty. So you've got to roll up the sleeves and roll up your pants, or even take your shirt off, because you are going to be hanging out on a roof pulling things up. You're going to be fixing a rooftop or building a rooftop, and it's going to be tedious work out in the sun. Have we seen any paintings of work? One that I can think of, which is Akbar's depiction, the depiction in the Akbarnama of the building of Fatehpur Sikri. Akbar was interested in the actual facts, the everyday reality of the people kneeling and squatting and hefting and carrying to build the palace. But in that he was very unusual, as he was unusual in so many things. Overwhelmingly, labor was not considered a worthy subject of art, and the laboring classes were not part of art. Because art was for the ruling class, overwhelmingly in the pre-modern period. From the ancient world, the prehistoric world, the ancient world, and up until roughly the 1500s and 1600s, overwhelmingly art was about the rulers. For them, about them. So we are seeing quite a significant turn here. Some growing signs of interest in other classes. Now, in the Song Dynasty, Zhang Zheduan did show us kind of the hustle and bustle of ordinary people moving along in the festival. But that's different than getting up close with the dirty clothes. So Kim Hong-do also gives us lower class Korean women doing the kind of work that is considered women's work, washing the clothes. So they are scrubbing and rinsing as they squat on rocks in the river. Notice that this scene of women working, beating the clothes, wringing the clothes out, their muscular labor, is different than what we saw for the men laying the tiles on the roof. Because this one includes a male figure over here behind his fan and the brim of his hat, hiding and peeking and invading their privacy. Right? A kind of a sexual violation, or a violation of their private world, in order to treat them as objects of his gaze, as sexualized objects of erotic interest. So we are seeing in these kinds of paintings of work a new interest in different classes, their behaviors, their lives. And what I'm saying is that this new emergence of the lower classes into the artistic view is always different for women in these cultures where women are a subordinate class and they are sexualized within that subordination. Notice how different the painting of the women washing at the wash place is from a section of Spring Dawn in the Han Palace. So the imperial court ladies, their garments and their activities are about their status, right? Look at their dainty manners, how very daintily she walks up the steps. There's no hiking up your pants and squatting in the river. This is a display of exquisite etiquette and beauty, and being proper in a Confucianist sense, knowing your place. You are in the women's quarters of the palace, because women were still controlled and kept as sexual prizes, but they had to observe the utmost propriety. But also stylistically, everything is precise and placed with absolute control and precise measurement and purposefulness. There's a kind of a direct sketchiness, as if as if this was made on the spot, as if this was really the moment. And so, the details are simplified, quick, simple strokes of the line work to create a sense of action happening. So these kinds of paintings, such as this one, now the artist is Sin Yun Bak, these are considered genre painting, which is an art history term, which means, I've defined it here, pictures of ordinary, and that means lower class people, doing ordinary activities. So these are scenes of everyday life. We are stepping out of the world of religious reverence, of royal imperial power, and we are coming down the social hierarchy with a tremendous interest in the actual facts of hairstyles and fashion, of hats, and what people did. We see in these Korean genre paintings a kind of a documentation of life as it was in everyday life, similar to what we expect in photography, but at the time of the paintings that Sin Yun Bak is making, there is no photography invented yet. But we can look in this later photograph and see, oh, this is a photograph that's capturing the clothing and the personal mannerisms of someone of the Yangban class, the aristocratic class. And here we see a member of the Jeongin, the middle class, the prosperous middle class. And so that prosperous, wealthy middle class, it goes with education and learning, as this painting of the middle class, the Jeongin, shows with the scroll, the implements of writing. This genre painting by Sin Yun Bak is particularly interesting in thinking about class. So the Joseon dynasty had a very rigid class structure, a government imposed class structure. At the top were the Yangban, then we have the Jeongin, the middle people, and then we get commoners, vulgar commoners, we get the Baekjeong, which are untouchables, and we do have the Nobi, the slaves or serfs. Now here's what's complicated. Again, it comes down to kind of the position of women who are inhabit different social roles sexually that come in conflict or escape class boundaries. So these women here are Kiseng, who are women who were talented, trained, entertainment ladies, you could say, offering sexual services along with their services in pleasure, delight, clever, witty talk, and all around fun for the men who are seated here around playing music, enjoying themselves, being entertained with the entertainment ladies who have their fashionable hair. So, in fact, they belong to the lowest class position, the position of slaves or serfs. And yet they mingle with men of the upper middle class, the Jeongin, and the Yangban, the aristocratic men. So there's a very interesting way in which they defy the strictures of society as they reveal them. So they are shown here in this very interesting painting as both belonging and not belonging in this circle of men who have their pipes, their musical instruments, who are relaxing. And the women, it's so interesting to look at their positions. One has her pipe too, the other is sort of wrapping her legs around her arms. We're, I think, to imagine a kind of a conversation between these two women privately, as the men converse among themselves, and then the servant woman brings in the drinks. And these women are an interesting comparison to the geishas in Japan that we will look. In both cases, they make their livelihoods by pleasing men, but they do it professionally. So the women of the upper classes had to be subordinate to and to please men, but they were highly restricted. The women of the upper classes could not smoke, could not do things that were not Confucianist proper behavior. So these women have a measure of freedom, but they also have a tremendous measure of vulnerability, because they are outside of the system of marriage, which is how most women in this society get a degree of economic security. So what's fascinating is that French painters of the 19th century who are exploring modernist ideas will be dealing with similar interests as Sin Yun Bak, who is showing us Korea in a kind of modernizing process. In both cases, women who are defying the strictures of sexual control and offering themselves sexually as a commodity are, in a sense, the kind of flowering of modernity, of a modern world where people are going to pursue their own pleasures. They're going to buy and sell on their own, because that's what modernity is: commercialization, industrialization, urbanization. And this will seem simultaneously liberating, shocking, exciting, and frightening.